Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
Ready?
Oh, let's do it.
Hey, what's up, Blazer fans? Welcome to the Blazers Edge podcast. I am Tara Bowen-Biggs here, as always, with Blazers outsider Danny Meringue.
Yeah, I'm going to need you to tone that down a little bit, Tara. I need to be more like, welcome to the Blazers Edge podcast, where things are going just swell.
Things are great. Okay. Things are not great right now, but a little maxim that I like to follow, which I believe I've heard you say as well, is that we can't get too high up and we can't get too far down. So we're going to hold ourselves to that tonight.
Yeah, we should say we're recording this, and 2 hours after the Spurs game. I just got done talking about how atrocious this game was on the post-game show. So I'm even though I don't get too high, too low, I'm still a little miffed about this game and the lack of effort on the defensive end. And
yeah, well, let's get into it and talk about it. Let's go a little bit deeper than you usually have time to on the post-game show. We have a lot of questions. One thing that I find really, silver lining, you might want to say, is that after a series of Blazers losses, there's lots to talk about. It's not like in the summer, or it's not like when everything's going perfect and we're just sitting there praising. It's like, we got stuff to dig into. So let's go ahead and do it. It is indeed Sunday night. They had an early game. So there's another thing. It's like not ridiculously late. So that's another not bright. We're already got two bright sides to look at. Sunday night, Blazers did just lose, though, to the San Antonio Spurs. San Antonio Spurs, it seems like all of their recent opponents were coming off of some really bad losses, or were on a losing streak, or really had something to prove. It seems like the Blazers are only meeting teams this year after they've had their heartfelt, closed door team meeting, or after they have, just gotten blown out and really need to come back and prove something. I don't know if that's true, but it sure feels like it. In any case, the Blazers, we were talking about it before, have lost they're 7 of their last 10. So
yeah,
not the same feeling that we had at the beginning of the year. So anyway, let's dive into it. You wrote a piece this weekend about the Blazers' defensive effort, and I think if you're gonna go by Twitter, defense seems to be the biggest problem, and I would agree with that. They're still scoring mostly over 100, and sometimes even a lot over 100, and still losing. So I think the offense has not fallen off a cliff, but it would be more accurate to say the defense has really, really regressed. So summarize for a minute kind of what you were talking about in that article, just in case people haven't heard it, because I thought it was really well put.
Okay, so a lot of times I want to look at scheme. I want to look at how the Blazers are executing in pick and roll coverages, what they're doing to combat certain actions, what they're doing when they're switches, when they're switching, when they're dropping off. Like, as I started going through the tape, like, it just didn't matter. Like, it was bad everywhere I looked.
You mean they weren't doing any of those things?
Yeah, I mean, like, the lack of communication on switches, late rotations, or if there even was a rotation, giving up on plays, dying on screens, not putting pressure where it needed to be put, not recovering in time, and it's up and down the lineup. Bench starters, doesn't matter. I mean, like, the only guys who I didn't openly just go, what the hell is going on here, were Dame, Meyers, Nurkic, and for the most part, Evan Turner. Everybody else was just, Dame gets a pass because he's dropping 40 a night. Like the guy's giving so much on the offensive end. If he gives a little bit up on the defensive end, I just don't care. That's where I'm at. Like tonight against the Spurs, 37 points, 10 assists, 1 turnover, and they get torched. Like, I mean, you just can't waste a game like that from him, and that's what really sucks. Tonight, the Spurs didn't do anything really special. It was isolation move or mid post up by DeRozan or LaMarcus. It immediately gets beat, and then if they send a double, one pass away, open shot. Not 2 passes, not 3 passes, 1 pass away. Like the Blazers have worked on double teaming because we know it because we've heard them Stotts talk about it. We heard the team talk about it. We talked about it on the podcast, the Stotts whistle on when to double team. And yet still 1 pass away, wide open. That's not a scheme thing. That's an effort problem.
So when you're saying 1 pass away, you're saying go down a little bit deeper and how come that keeps happening?
I wish I knew why. I really do. But I mean, like they know when the double team comes from the ball side on the baseline, LaMarcus Aldridge, they know where they need to rotate to. They know what the scouting report is. Like they know who they can and can't leave. They know how fast they need to get out there. They hear the whistle. They know where they need to go, and it's still not happening.
You said right at the beginning, you mentioned communication.
Mm-hmm.
I see less communication overall because I measure communication by pointing.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's a fact that, that continuity, thing has been happening. But they just inserted Mo Harkless back into the lineup. So you'd think that they'd be needing to be a little bit more communicative when they've shaken up the lineup just a little bit. How do you feel like Mo is working back in and how he's in particular working back in playing defense?
Tonight against the Spurs was his best entire game so far back. Saw a couple plays where he hedged, recovered, got in passing lanes, got in transition. That one offensive foul that he got on the dunk in transition tonight was indicative of what I want Mo to be. Not the offensive foul part, but the aggressiveness, the athleticism, causing problems. But the communication aspect of it, there's been at least a dozen times, maybe more, that I've actively sat there with Joe and Shane in the control room, and after a bad play, we'll roll it back real quick. I go, watch right here, and you can see it's typically one of the bigs. It's been Meyers or Nurkic, and Evan Turner to an extent too. Looking at the perimeter players, like, what the hell are you doing? Like they just stare at him like, the coverage, and then kind of like scolding him like, you know what you're supposed to be doing here, and then they kind of shake their head. And I saw E.T., Meyers, and somebody else, and I don't. This is going to sound terrible because I've been hard on the kid in the past, but there was a play against Denver, I believe, where Collins got completely caught up. And I'll talk about Collins in particular. I think he's just in his own head right now more than anything else. Mm-hmm. I think that it kind of explains what he's trying to fight his subpar play lately instead of just playing, which is a totally normal thing for a kid.
Right. And it also is kind of a separate problem because that's exactly, like an individual problem.
Yeah. Collins, I'm not really knocking for effort right now. I think he's thinking about things, which kind of scares me a little bit because he's been such an instinctual player. Right. But there was a play where Meyers is clearly going to step up on the screen, and instead Collins does. And it puts Meyers in no man's land, and the wide open 3 comes. Mm-hmm. So Meyers is stuck in between, not able to box out. There's no pressure put on the shooter. It ended up being a miss, but it was an offensive rebound putback because Meyers wasn't able to get there. And actually it was an offensive rebound putback and one. I believe it was Turner that had to come down all the way from the 3-point line above the break on the opposite side of the floor to try to break up the play. And Meyers pulls him to the side like, what are you doing, man? And then Evan comes over and kind of reinforcing the message, like, what the coverage is here. Like, you can see him just kind of miming it out. Like, better. Like, that's more excusable, like, better, like, in your own head stuff, than it is the effort stuff where I've seen guys just look at shooters on the perimeter.
How about somebody like who has for a long time really been a stalwart part of our defense, like Aminu? What's his deal lately?
I don't know. There have been times where even he's getting caught out of position. And a lot of it, I think you're right there. It is as weird as the whole pointing thing may sound to some folks, but it's like almost like they need to get back to that, like back to the basic, because a lot of times guys are dying on screens too early, and guys like Aminu and Harkless are going to have to step up, and then the defense is caught in a rotation or a slide way too early in the possession, and they're done, and they're scrambling the entire possession. And Aminu is a guy who I think can blow up plays more consistently, but I just haven't seen that from him lately.
I have noticed Meyers and Collins coming in together or very close, one right after the other, sort of reminiscent of last year with Ed Davis and Collins. Do you think that is something similar going on? You know, just to having somebody alongside Collins, and could it be that it's not working, or could it just be that it's only recent and they haven't really adapted to it yet?
I think it's more the second part. Actually, I know people are quick to bash Meyers, but defensively, I haven't seen much from Meyers that has made me question a whole lot. He's had some bad possessions, certainly. Everybody has. But I think defensively, I think he's done really what they need him to do. I mean, I'm watching the replay right now, and off of a offensive rebound, off a scramble play, Spurs get reset quick. If you remember tonight, there was that play, I mentioned it on Twitter, where Rudy Gay just stood in the corner the entire possession. Blazers left him twice.
Yeah.
And then Aminu just doesn't recover out to him, and he kind of hesitates and looks at him. And I think maybe for a second he thought, hey, that's Rudy Gay from 6 years ago. He can't shoot. But instead it's 40% three-point shooter Rudy Gay. And then by the time he recognizes it and he gets out there, Rudy's got all day to step into it and can it.
I think they're all just they're all just into their own heads. I just think that they're not, they need to let go a little bit. And I remember at the beginning of the season, there were a couple of games where I was actually going to try to find enough video to pull together like a little compilation of it. There were times where they were so in sync that they looked like those, videos that people show of like when all the players on the bench turn around at this exact same time or whatever. There were times at the beginning of the season where they looked like that. I guess that's like on a string or whatever, where they were just moving completely in unison. And in order to do that, you have to like give up your thinking about yourself, and you have to be thinking about where everybody else is. And it's almost like they're concentrating, or they're just thinking too much about what they're doing individually rather than maybe how they are moving as part of like this whole organic, piece that it seemed like it was more comfortable at the beginning of the season.
No, I think it's spot on.
I think also one of the things I always kind of advocate for when things get like this is shaking things up a little bit. And I used to, say that with, put in more Noah Vonleh, because when Noah Vonleh came in, everybody had to concentrate on what they were doing because it was like they're working in a new person, or they're working in some new plays. Everybody has to pay that much more attention, and they're just that sharper. So what if you were going to be the coach and it came down to, I got to try something new? What sort of kind of lineup shakeups do you think that Stotts could try if he decided to go that route?
I know a lot of people are campaigning for Wade Baldwin. I love Wade. I love his intensity.
He plays defense, and that's what they're lacking right now.
The problem is that I've seen with Wade, and I love Wade, is that he seems in the same vein, kind of like trying to prove something every time he gets on the floor instead of just playing. But I think judging by
something drastic like move Aminu to the bench and move Collins into the starting lineup.
No, so Chad Doing has been trumpeting that on the radio probably the last week or so, and I get where he's coming from, but Terry Stotts is very much a merit-based coach. I don't know what the message sends that moving Zach Collins into the starting lineup with the play that he's had for the past 3 weeks sends. You know what I mean?
Pretend that it's not Terry Stotts. Pretend that it's you, and you're at like fantasy camp, and you're given the chance to try out something new. Would you try that out?
I can't right now. That's what I mean. That's what I believe. Like I couldn't, because it's the locker room, the team. It's this living organism, and if somebody's not getting it done, and then all of a sudden they're being given more responsibility, that's a hard message to sell. Like Chief, has he struggled? Yeah, but I still think he's playing at least passable defense, and offensively, the last 2 games he's been huge. So I don't know if he's the guy that you can do that with right now. Even if you slide Chief to the 3 and start Zach, what does that do to Mo's confidence? Whatever's left of that. So that's my hesitation with that. Like, if it's going to happen, I think it has to happen in the bench unit, or it happens with how the minutes are doled out.
Okay.
But when you do that, these guys are very accustomed to getting X amount of minutes a night. And again, you do have to earn it, but it's very hard to get in that groove when you don't know what's going to happen in a given night. So you're kind of playing with fire if you're doing that. But I get the need or the desire to want to change things up, because right now they're just not getting it done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just maddening because we saw them do it before. And I get that other teams read the scouting report and all of that, but it just seems like they could be playing better than they have been lately. Should we move on to the questions from Twitter, because we got a lot of good ones?
Yeah, let's get to them. Let's get on. Let's start with a big question one and then kind of work our way in.
Okay.
This one came from Troy Bruger at Troy Delivers. This is a new low point in the season. We look terrible as a unit from top to bottom when it comes to exciting the game of basketball from one end of court to the other. So where do we go from here? And I think that kind of ties in with what you're saying with, like, would you make a change? So I guess I'll pose that one to you, Tara. What if you have the opportunity to make a change? Do you make a change, or what do the Blazers do from here?
Well, I think I would go somewhere along the lines of what I was talking about. The other thing is I'm not quite sure, and I don't know if there's another question on this. I'm not quite sure I was really done with Jake in the starting lineup. So I think I would shake things up with the starting lineup a little bit. And I guess, I mean, it's obviously not Nurk or Dame or CJ, so it's either Aminu or that other position. But I think I would try doing that. And I think these guys have been around long enough to know. I mean, look at Turner. He's adjusted to coming off the bench, even though he's making starter money. He's adjusted fine to coming in his role off the bench. And Terry Stotts has shown before that he'll do the thing where he starts somebody, but it's just for a short time, the beginning of the first half and the beginning of the second half. And there are still plenty of minutes to go around. So I think that's how I'd try it.
I want to say that Portland needs to make a change. I really do.
Like a roster change?
Well, no, I mean,
or
just
lineup.
Roster change, yeah. I mean, that's no secret. I felt that for quite some time. But one thing that happened tonight in the Spurs game that I thought, at least from my point of view, the game was well out of hand in the closing minutes of the fourth quarter. Who was still on the floor, Tara?
Damian. I mean, the starters.
When does a coach typically do that?
Well, I don't know, because I really thought up until about 2 minutes left that they could have pulled it close, and part of me wanted them to get out there and fight through it, to just leave them out there and make them fight through it. So I don't necessarily know that I would have done more, because the gap got larger towards the end. I mean, they were more in the 10-point range for from minute, I can't remember off the top of my head, but maybe minutes 6 to 10 or 6 to 2, they were in the 10-point range.
Yeah. Like my thought, or my take, however you want to look at it, is that Stotts was pissed in that he looked at it and was like, you know what? Normally I'd take you out right now, but I'm going to let you stew in this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to let you see it. I'm going to let you feel it, because this is the hole you dug.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Dame played almost 42 minutes tonight. I don't want to call it punishment.
But like you were saying, Dame is the one who was out there doing everything right. So like leaving him in for punishment, that doesn't make any sense.
Dame doesn't ever want to come off the floor, though.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if Stotts is going to do it, he's going to do it to all the starters, not just all of the starters, but Dame. Because I think Dame would have a problem with that. But I think that was genuinely a part of it. I could be reading it entirely wrong, but that's when I looked at how things were playing out, that felt like what was happening. But I don't think this team needs anything other than a swift kick in the ass. Like they need to find something to motivate. I don't know what it is, but they need something.
It needs to be getting Damian Lillard to the All-Star game, because he's not getting to the All-Star game like this.
As a starter.
Right. They need to call me in, and I will have a individual conversation with each of them about how important it is that Dame needs to be a starter, and he can't be a starter if they're not out there winning games. I'm sure if I was able to go in and talk to them, they would understand. Don't you think?
I have no idea.
Let's move on to another popular question that I've heard a lot of. Let's go with the one from, I do not know how to say this. Synagogue. It's like Synadoche, but there's a dog in the middle.
Cinco Dog Noche?
Yes, Synagogue Noche.
5 Dog Night?
Okay. Anyway, 5 Dog Night, Synagogue Noche wants to know, what's up with the bench? Regression? What happened to the flow?
I think tonight against the Spurs, it's Evan Turner.
Yeah.
The lack of Evan Turner. Stotts staggered Dame and CJ. And when Dame and CJ are on the floor, Dame did rack up 10 assists tonight. He was still trying to find guys, but I think more than anything else, those guys are – Evan Turner is actively looking for Meyers Leonard. He's actively looking for Zach Collins. He's actively looking for Nik Stauskas. Whereas if Dame feels like he needs to get some buckets here, he's going to get some buckets. And where Evan Turner, like his primary focus is, all right, let's get a good play. Let's get everybody involved here. And that's not a criticism of Damian Lillard. The guy damn near dropped 40 tonight and carried the team for much of the night.
But just not having that third playmaker, because Dame's a playmaker, CJ's a playmaker, and Evan Turner is a playmaker, and there wasn't that third playmaker. There was Seth Curry, who had the ball in his hands a few times, but he wasn't out there playmaking.
No. I mean, at one point in time, I think, let's see, it's updated to, let's take a look at the field goal attempts here. Bench players attempted 5, 3, 8. Yeah, so it didn't change. The bench attempted 11 shots tonight, Tara.
Wow.
11 of 86.
Jeez, that is nothing. Well,
Meyers 1 of 1, Seth 1 of 2, Stauskas 1 of 3, Zach 2 of 5.
Wow.
And the
That's
only
just not enough. What are they doing? Well, I mean, I guess also if either Dame or CJ was in there the whole time, that's also gonna affect that a little bit. One other
in the offense.
Say that again?
With those guys running the offense, with Dame and CJ running the offense, their primary, mantra is get buckets.
Yeah. But they're also not considered bench. So
yes,
their shots wouldn't be going towards them. I thought of another lineup shakeup that I've been thinking about for the last couple of weeks, and that would be at some point maybe Stotts would insert Anfernee into the lineup instead of maybe Seth Curry, and just go with the development of Anfernee.
That won't happen until late in the season, if it does happen.
Well, we didn't think it was going to happen with Zach Collins either.
Yeah,
he did sit for a while, and then I don't think he started being part of the regular rotation until January.
Yeah. He started getting.
We'll see him later.
That's what I mean. I don't think it'll happen until around the trade deadline, because Seth's contract's only a year, and if the organization is high on Anfernee, as I believe they are, they're going to get there eventually. Mm-hmm. But right now, I just don't see.
I'm ready for it. Let's do another question. You want to pick one?
Yeah. Let's go with something a little bit more positive. From Bob Deeger. At Bob Deeger, PF Normal. He's got 2 questions for us. One, Nurkic seems to be finishing better inside this year. Do you think Stotts and Dame should be getting more shots? 2, is there anyone on the bench who could help us if given more minutes? So, as far as Nurk goes, he was 7 of 11 tonight, Tara.
I really could not be happier with how Nurk has been playing this year. That period. How do you think he did against Jokic, though? I don't think he was too spectacular against Jokic. I wish he could have dominated him more.
I think that was more about the Blazers going away from the matchup more than anything else. I wanted to see them go more at Jokic. That was kind of where I was sitting there, and it was a little disheartening. And I've had that feeling probably 4 or 5 times this season where I was like, can we get Nurk a little more involved? So yeah, I do agree with his sentiment here. I'm not campaigning for Nurk to get 20 shots a night. That's not what I'm at. But I think Nurk should probably get 14 a night. Like that's where I'm sitting at. I think he can definitely do more. And I don't think it's about Nurkic passing up shots. I just think that they need to get him a few more sets. I think there's a couple times each game where the other guys on the floor are just missing him.
And you know how much I love Aminu, but there are some nights where he is clearly not hitting it and they still keep giving them to him. And on those nights, I think Nurk could have gotten a lot more.
A few more of those
touches.
Like yeah. Aminu went
why are you passing it to him 13 times if he's not hitting anything?
That's the scouting report. That's teams leaving him entirely. Mm-hmm. I wish the Blazers would work for another shot. That's part of that. But
they were doing that at the beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Like this is.
But yeah, I do think
I'm scratching my head right now. Like, can we just?
Well, I
get Nurk a little bit more involved. I'm not asking for the guy to be the focal point of the offense. We saw what that looked like last year with the straight post ups over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think if we want something positive, I think Dame and Nurkic have been, everything that we could hope. Or at least everything I was hoping for, they've been. And I think CJ is having kind of I think he's getting more heat than he probably deserves. I don't know. What do you think about that?
About what?
About CJ. I kind of think he's getting more heat than he deserves. I think that.
I think it's the right temperature.
You think so?
Yeah. CJ's had some nights where he's had some serious tunnel vision on offense.
Yeah.
Offensively, I mean, he's had some rough nights recently, Tara. He's had some, tonight, DeRozan just obliterated him in the post.
Yeah.
All night long. I mean, DeRozan's a professional scorer, and that's what he does. And I threw it up on Twitter during the game. The head-to-head matchup between DeRozan and CJ, I think it's 7-3 for DeRozan now. And in those games, DeRozan's averaging over 30 points a game. So, DeRozan is clearly
just feasting on him
for CJ. So, it's a tough one to overcome, though. Like, I don't know what you really do to make CJ, 4 inches taller.
Right. Well, and I think that people look at the team struggling and they just kind of go down the list and go, well, it's not Damian, it's not Nurkic, CJ, and they just kind of stop there.
The next guy with the most responsibility.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair assessment. Because if you look at what Nurkic is doing right now, he's career high in points, career high in rebounds. I believe he's career high in field goal percentage. Yep. Career high field goal percentage, career high effective field goal percentage, career high free throw percentage, career high assists. And he's just off the pace, I think, for blocks, and his turnovers are down. Mm-hmm. So, what more
can't really ask for more there.
And he's actually playing less minutes on average so far this season than they did last year.
Yeah, it's nice. Like we talked about it last time, and he's matured very nicely into his role. There was a second part to Bob Deger's question, though. Is there anyone on the bench who could help us if given more minutes? I'm puzzled why they don't go with Stauskas in the second half.
So, in looking at the lineup data, when I did that piece on this on Saturday, the lineups that have given up the highest field goal percentage and highest 3-point percentage have included Stauskas.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if that's part of the reason why he's not getting minutes. And the Blazers offense is still humming along. Even when they got their ass kicked tonight, they still hung 118.
Yeah.
So
another positive.
Mhm. So I think that Stotts is just looking for somebody to give him some defense.
I don't know. I feel like he brings a little bit more, but I don't know anything. So we'll wait and find out. Because like I said, I also wouldn't mind seeing Anfernee in the in the lineup either.
Which is hilarious because a couple weeks ago you were like, I don't know if he's quite ready.
Well, I still don't think he is ready, but I'm getting to the point where it's like let's give him some let's speed up his development.
I mean, I'm not quite there yet.
You're the one who thinks he has it, so.
Yeah, I mean, and there's something about the kid that I definitely like, but I mean, I don't think I'm quite there yet, but I'm not far away. That's for damn sure.
Let's take another question. Let's see. Well, there was another question about from C Blake 05 Corey, and it's about CJ. Can you talk about CJ McCollum versus Gary Harris? They both had great offensive nights, but I thought Gary Harris won the matchup because of how he contained Lillard to 15 points, as well as hitting the clutchest shot of the night. So looking back on that game, Lillard only scored 15 points.
Yeah, no, Gary Harris, I actually thought going into that game that Harris was not going to play. I was talking to one of the Denver media guys. He said it was a pretty good chance that he wasn't going to play. So when I saw him starting, I was like, crap. Because CJ's actually had a really difficult time with Harris in the past. So that one was
CJ managed to score that night, though.
Mm-hmm. No, he did. And credit to CJ. Like I said, CJ's had some really, really difficult matchups. But Harris is a guy who he's a hell of a player. I really like him. He's not the offensive caliber player night in, night out that CJ is, but he is a better defender. Harris is a guy who should search for the right thing. It's not a slight at CJ, but I think Harris is more of what the Blazers need than what CJ gives them.
How so?
Just because of his defensive ability. I think he's not the scorer, but he has the capability to go off. But he's a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit more athletic, and much more focused on the defensive end. Mm-hmm. But as far as his impact, you talk about CJ McCollum versus Gary Harris. Harris has actually got the better of McCollum in the last couple of games. So I think that kind of speaks for itself.
Don't you think with the way the game is going now, though, if you had to choose, between CJ's offense and Gary Harris's defense, I mean, the scoring is outrageous anymore. And I don't know, and even good defenses are letting their opponents put up 110 points. I mean, it's kind of like you got to just kind of go with one or, be all in on, everybody's all in on offense, I guess. And, Portland already has somebody like Aminu who plays better defense than he plays offense. So I guess, would you replace somebody like Aminu with somebody like Gary Harris?
No, I mean, there's levels to it. I'm not saying that Gary Harris is a better player or even really a better fit. It's more about like right now, like what makes more sense for Portland. They're getting their offense, but would Gary Harris be a better player for Portland right now for what they need? And I think that there's an argument there at least for that. And I don't know. It's frustrating because more than anything else, we've seen what Portland can be defensively. And so everybody's during the show tonight in the pre and post game, everybody was in the Facebook comments asking about trades and moving somebody. And I don't think moving anybody right now fixes anything.
Well, and it's really hard to talk about right now with Portland in the situation they're in with, Paul Allen having died and they're being in this weird position. I don't feel like any deals are going to be made. We kind of need to.
Yeah, if anything, we've talked about this a million times. It's going to be a luxury tax move to make the team more attractive on the salary level and a business level for a prospective new owner. The only way I see a deal being done that involves big money going out and coming back in is if the new prospective owner is basically greenlit in the behind the scenes by the NBA, and he's passing word like, here's what I would okay a deal if this was the deal that was discussed. Bob Whitsitt did that when he was still a general manager in Seattle before he came to Portland, because he was still officially under contract, but he greenlit the coaching hire. Like, they were in communication, even though it's technically not allowed.
But you do love talking about that type of thing.
Yeah,
I'm sorry that this isn't really realistic to talk about it.
No, that's the frustrating thing is like even though I do love that stuff and I love playing with the trade machine and working through different machinations, the reality of the business side of things is limiting things. Mm-hmm. And then on top of it, I don't think it's a good idea to start throwing that stuff out there now, because this could just be a really crappy lull in the season. Mm-hmm. Let's say they go on one of their other runs again.
Yeah.
And now you've kind of upset the ecosystem of the locker room, because these guys know when those things are getting out there, because agents are being talked to. So it's a dicey situation. It's a really hard tightrope to walk, to say the least.
Well, let's pick another question.
What do you got?
I thought this was a really interesting one. It's something we haven't really talked about much. It's from DeBrain19. Mm-hmm. Is there an adjustment by the players to the new NBA scheduling? They do not have traditional back-to-backs as often, and there is more time between games. Is this to blame for the relative lack of focus? If you look across the league, there's a lot more mediocrity. Okay, so that's the end of the question. I'm not quite sure that I agree with the last part of the question about there being a lot more mediocrity in the league. It seems like there's a lot of really good play in the league going on.
There's a lot of parity, not a lot of mediocrity.
Yeah, I think that might be more accurate. But one thing that I have noticed about the schedule that I think is kind of strange, and I could see how it might be a little funky, is that like they keep playing the same people over and over again. I mean, it's like there's several teams that they've already seen several times, and we're 25 games into the season.
Yeah.
And that seems different than in years past.
I honestly, I think that's just how things kind of played out with the schedule more than anything else. Because this has been a little bit of a weirder schedule, and that's for sure. I mean, if you look at the month of December, they have a bunch of road trips, but they're all 2-game trips. San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, Memphis, Utah, Golden State.
Yeah, we've been through the December schedule before. It's absolutely horrendous.
Yeah, but if you look at it, even though there's not that many back-to-backs, I was looking at it the other day, from December 2nd to the December 4th,
every other night.
It's literally every
2
other
weeks.
night but one. And in that period, you've just got heavy hitter after heavy hitter after heavy hitter. And then the week around Christmas, Tara, 17th, 19th, 21st, 23rd, 25th, 27th, 29th, 30th.
Well, and it's one of those things where they're seeing multiple teams multiple times. Utah, Dallas, Utah, Golden State, Golden State.
Yeah, I mean, and this is on the heels of seeing Dallas. And
I feel like they're just all getting sick of each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a weird test. But I guess the bright side of this is there aren't any long layovers. You don't really have like a big gap. So if you do get right,
you can keep rolling.
Yeah, maybe you can run off some wins.
Yeah.
The problem is,
I could go with that. Look at you being positive.
When you're in a rut, sometimes you get stuck in that rut for a while too.
Yeah, well, and sometimes adversity just brings you together even more. Let's see. Why don't you choose another one?
All right. There was a couple ones that came in really early.
Why do the Blazers hate us?
Yeah.
That's from Oz to PDX.
Yeah.
Virgil van Dijk's #1 fan. Why do the Blazers hate us? Is it time to panic? I've already gone ahead and started, so please say yes.
I mean, I don't think it's time to panic, but
I think if you're a Blazer fan, you either are sort of in permanent panic mode, or you're just kind of like, you're so used to this that you're just kind of numb.
Yeah, that's my camp. Those are my people. I just kind of roll with it. That doesn't mean I don't get frustrated or irritated in the game when, they give up 130. But it's kind of tying in with that. Berlacious M. Why is every team exceeding their 3-point percentage season average against us lately? Last year for the perimeter defense worked really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, it's it's been fun to say the least.
Well, what would you say is the principle of Blazers perimeter defense, or at least what was it last year when it was working really well?
Run out at shooters, run them off the line. Run them off the line damn near at any cost. If you have to surrender an open mid-range jumper, so be it. Problem is they aren't running anybody off the line. Like I was looking at the numbers over the last 10 games, and opponent three-point percentage. Tara, opponents are shooting 43.3% against the Portland Trail Blazers.
Oh, my gosh.
Dead last in the NBA over the last 10 games. And that is on damn near 30 attempts a night. They are giving up the most makes, 12.9, a game.
They're giving up the most and the highest percentage.
Yeah.
So everybody just comes in and goes, "Oh, we're playing Portland, shoot threes."
Yeah, I mean, take what they're giving you, and that again ties back to like what we saw the last couple of games, which is one pass away, open look. And if you're going to give that to teams in today's NBA, they are just gonna eat it up. I mean, that's just.
So last year, you're saying when they were on the perimeter, there was somebody closing out on them, so they didn't have time to get it up, so they moved it on to somewhere else or put it on the floor.
Yeah.
And now they have enough time that they're like, oh, okay.
Make them attack a closeout. Make them go after something other than that above the break three. And that's the thing is like opponents aren't just hitting a ton of corner threes. They are hitting a ton of above the break threes, which is where Portland defense is trying to run them off of. So, and the Portland defense limiting corner threes has always been good. So this is just, it's foreign territory to say the least.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is we've seen them do it before. So hopefully they can figure out whatever it is to.
That's what I keep falling back on.
To do it again.
I look at it and like you know me, I'm not one to always try to find a silver lining, but I just have this thing in the back of my head like they did it for 13 games. They did it for most of a season last year. Like what the hell is so different that all of a sudden they don't want to get out and take that shot away now? And I wish I had a good answer to it, but it realistically seems like it's the biggest culprit is effort.
That just seems like so not a good answer.
I know that's what sucks. Like I want it to be something scheme wise. I want it to be something that you can like, yes, we can change this. I mean, yeah, you can change effort, but that shouldn't be a problem, Tara.
Playing devil's advocate here, I want to make sure that you clearly know this is me playing devil's advocate. This is not me talking, but isn't effort a part of the coach's job?
To an extent, yes. But to have it through the first 13 games and then over the last 10 to not,
Has Stotts lost the locker room?
No.
Are they not paying attention to him anymore?
People are definitely asking that now. And I would say no from what I've heard. But
I mean, what would you hear? Portland doesn't let things out.
No, just from people around the league. Just you hear things around in pretty much every locker room if you know what to look for.
They couldn't even get a win on his birthday.
Yeah, that sucked. But it's just it's weird. I don't want to say that's the case. I don't want to believe that's the case, and I don't believe it's the case. But I get where, and while
maybe it's some of you just not wanting it to be the case.
It could be. But if that's the case, then Portland is in a world of hurt.
Yeah. Ooh, let's wait a few more weeks before we talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
did we address?
Get right.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I say let's see if they can get right. But if we're still looking at this like come around the trade deadline, that's problematic to say the least.
Have we addressed Layman and the fact that he's fallen completely out of the rotation?
Not really, but I mean, he was when I was doing the research for the article this weekend. Layman had some of the really bad field goal percentage defense, 3-point percentage defense, and that's not I said this in the article. It's not to put it all on Layman. That's for damn sure, because the team in general kind of holds the bar for what that is. But I think if the Blazers are looking at things, and from the way Stott talks about things in the post game, on off splits, field goal percentage defense, 3-point percentage defense, what's allowed in a quarter, what's allowed in a half. I think they're looking at the analytics part of it, and with Jake on the floor, and it just didn't look good. So,
okay, what if it's one of those situations where the analytics are telling a story, but it's not necessarily the right story? I think it was somebody was talking about, they were writing about Kawhi Leonard and how he was so good on defense that he was actually a detriment to San Antonio. It was a very convoluted argument, but there was a little kernel.
It was Matt Moore talking about Kawhi's impact or statistical impact or analytical impact.
Okay. This is no way is saying that Jake Layman is like
Kawhi
Leonard.
Kawhi Leonard, perfect.
But it made me think about, we look at the numbers and go, oh, well, so he's not great on defense. So, his lineups are bad. So we should take him out. What if you kind of twisted that around a little bit and let it play out a little bit longer, and you left some of those players in who were not great on defense because everybody else who was in at the time knows that so-and-so is not the greatest on defense, and so they're going to have to stay alert, and they're going to have to put in the effort because maybe they have someone who's not as good. Maybe that's a way that they could trick themselves into all being like, okay, so we have to all be on top because there's nobody can take a play off because they're down a little bit compared to the other team's ability to play offense. Does that make any sense at all?
No, I get where you're coming from. And and here's the other thing that, at least bigger picture stuff is that, remind me again what the Blazers record was when Jake Layman was starting.
10-3.
Hey, that's a big number too.
Yeah.
So, maybe there's something to that. At this point in time, I'm pretty much okay with, putting him back in the lineup somewhere, somehow, whether that's cutting Chiefs minutes or Harkless going to the bench, whatever the case. I know earlier in the podcast I said I wasn't really sure what about changes, but I think that. And here's
things
the thing.
Were working.
Yeah, and the thing is that Stotts has tinkered already a lot. And that's, I think, out of character for him. He played for long stretches in the Denver game with Nurkic and Leonard on the floor at the same damn time.
Mm-hmm.
If that doesn't tell you what Stotts is trying to do, which is anything he can to win a game, within reason. We're not benching CJ McCollum and starting Wade Baldwin. I saw somebody suggest that earlier, and folks, there's a reason Wade Baldwin isn't playing. Okay, so let's reel that one back in a little bit. But how many tweaks can you do? Do you just keep tweaking until you find something? Yeah, that sounds all well and good, but the reality of managing those egos, and let's be clear on something. Every player in the league, even the most egoless player, has an ego. They're the top 0.1% of what they do in the world. You don't get there being the most humble cat on the face of the planet, and you have to manage those things. So if all of a sudden you just start tinkering, then I think, and that's not just a Stotts thing, that's across the board with coaches in the league, you can't do that too much because then it looks like you don't know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I fully believe that Stotts knows what he's doing. I think Stotts is one of the best damn coaches in the league. But I don't think we've reached the point yet, but we're getting pretty darn close to, you do have to try some of the more out of the box stuff even more frequently, which I don't know how much more out of the box you get in today's modern NBA than Nurkic and Leonard at the same time. From Leonard, I think
I'd be curious how that lineup did.
From memory, I think it did actually pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
actually, the thing is, and we should actually probably wrap it up here pretty soon. But one of the things is that I don't know despite their performance, their win-loss record, when Meyers is in, good things tend to happen.
And I think the same is true with
you see, I couch that in so many layers of caution, but really, it's true.
Here's the thing, and this is why I said Dame, Nurkic, and Meyers, just when we're talking about effort. I think those are the guys that are giving you the most effort right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
everybody should get a 100-pound hammer to walk around with.
I want to see Anfernee Simons try to carry my hammer around. I'm not even remotely kidding. I want that to happen. I want that to be a thing. But yeah, you're spot on, Tara. Like effort plays. While we're recording here, I have the game replay going in the background, and I'm just seeing play after play after play with the Blazers are scoring on offense.
Mm-hmm.
The Spurs are pulling the ball out of the basket and beating guys down the floor. Like this is not helping my frustration level at all. I'm sitting here watching it like, you have got to be kidding me. Like it's just I'm like wanting to pull my hair out just over and over again. It's just it's
so you probably don't have an answer to the question that I asked on Twitter tonight.
I don't have a lot of answers, Tara.
Well, this one most people were able to answer, and that is, how do you take care of yourself after a Blazer loss? What do you do?
I go with the this will give you a mental image. I go with a scalding hot shower to try to like burn a layer of skin off. So yeah, I normally what my routine is, I usually go see my girlfriend, unwind, relax a little bit, get out of whatever I have on and get into something comfy, and then
change your clothes, change your skin. Just
well, here's the thing. Yeah, and then I sit down in front of the TV and I rewatch the game.
And you just put yourself through it all over again.
Yeah, like a utter masochist. I don't like it. Some people like to come home and have a nice stiff drink.
I had several people say chocolate, cookies, lounge pants. People suggested a lot of different TV shows. I, of course, have my Hallmark Channel movies and cookies.
No, I go head first back into the seventh rung of hell.
Sherwood Blunt, I saw your answer. It would be off-brand for me to comment on it, but I totally see it.
Yeah, I just...
Well...
Yeah, exactly. I like to bask in it and wallow in it, just really absorb the crappiness.
I think part of why it's so hard for us to find words right now is just because they got off to a great start. We weren't expecting this. The last few seasons we were prepared. I remember those clearly for the last 3 years talking about how winter around here is just like driving through a terrible rainstorm, and you just have to stay on the road and eventually you will get through it. And it's like I kind of forgot about that. I was like, oh, maybe we're gonna have a nice easy drive this time. But no, this is how it always goes. There's always a little weather on the road. You always gotta just get through it. So we're entering that period right now. Maybe we've been in it for a little while, but we will get through it.
Yeah, I wish I could take a step back and just kind of offer something that would be comforting and whatever. I mean, I don't really, because that's not my style.
No, I know. What are you moving in on my brand now? Come on, Dan.
But the thing is, like, when I sat down to do that article that went up Saturday, it was probably a week's worth of research, just digging into everything I could to find a pinpoint issue. So-and-so has been crappy in this situation. This is happening here. This is where you can work on. This is where you can fix it. The problem is it's this ethereal thing known as effort. Mm-hmm. And it's just such an ominous, crappy thing to talk about, because even when this team was struggling, it was about personnel. It was about lack of something here or something there, something you could clearly point to. Now that it's this thing that has been a hallmark of Portland teams really for the past 6 years. Like, you never questioned Wes Matthews' effort. You never questioned Robin Lopez's effort. You haven't questioned Al-Farouq Aminu's effort. And now all of a sudden we're looking at it like, man, there's a bunch of dudes out on the floor right now who look like they just don't care. And that sucks. Like, I even saying it out loud irritates me.
Yeah, well, I feel like you're guessing here.
Yeah, and that's
and you're projecting what you think they look. I mean, I imagine if you went to most of them and asked them, do you care? Of course they care.
Yeah, no, and then
From the outside, that's what you're saying it looks like.
That's what it looks like. And that's a really, really crappy thing to say about this team. And I don't enjoy it at all. At all, because it's not something that I associate with any of these guys on this roster. So I think that's what makes it that much more frustrating.
You should do like me and write a weekly column about the things that were good, no matter how much you have to search through hours and hours of tape, you can find them. And I have to tell you right now, in the running for next week's Mom's Favorite is going to be that new play
the Meyers
Leonard and Damian Lillard have developed. Where Meyers
literally just ran on the screen.
Himself over Damian Lillard and traps. Wait, who is the player who got trapped underneath him?
He 3-second counted Patty Mills.
That was amazing.
Patty's like, help me.
And I get to look through tape every week and find my favorite Meyers Leonard screens, which are just so entertaining. So you just got to grab onto whatever it is that entertains you, and then when it happens, just be so happy about it. That's what I suggest. That and, whatever else you do. Your hot showers and your unwinding.
Yeah, I'm trying to find good things, but then the bad things start percolating up again. I just dig a deeper hole. So
well, let's put a lid on those bad things for the rest of the night. Let's wrap it up. I can be found on Twitter at TCBBigs, and you can also find the Hoops and Talks podcast and follow us at Hoops and Talks on Twitter. We just had an episode come out last week where we talked to our friends in Golden State and Los Angeles and found out how things are going with them. It's always so enlightening to talk to people from other fan bases. So people can check that out in part of the regular Blazers Edge podcast feed. Thank you, everyone who listens and subscribes. That's about it for me. Dan, why don't you take us out of here?
All right, folks, you can find me on social media everywhere else for all of your whining, complaining, commiserating, berating, everything else you want. Seriously, if you want to complain to me, to Tara, do it.
Yeah, people should know that, like, for an hour after we hang up on the podcast, I complain to you for like an hour.
Yeah, I mean that's the reality of it. Like, people, if you have questions, you can hit me up. My DMs are open. I'm always willing to talk. You can do it in the Facebook chat at the Blazers Outsiders pre and post game show. Again, at DMarang, at DMARANG. Again, announcement. Blazers Outsiders will be on location at Rialto on 4th, just outside Pioneer Courthouse Square for the next 3 weeks. From December 4th to the 21st, we'll be down there, Joe, Shane, and I. So if you want to come down before the game, after the game, during the game, you can yell things at us, obscenities, questions. We don't care. We're just down there to have some fun. So come on down, come check it out. It should be a good time. Win, loss, or draw. We always have some fun no matter what. Terry, you got anything else you want to plug here?
Nope, that about does it. Well, the next Women's Hoops and Talks meetup is going to be on December 19th at the McMinimans on Broadway. So come and join us. We have a great time. And I would miss if I didn't, because I slacked on it during the show tonight. Blazers Edge Night is coming up in March. This is the season of giving. So if you have the ability to donate to the event, I believe it's $2,200 or $2,500. I can't even remember now. It's a lot of people that we're trying to send this year, and we always need help. This is the time of year that we get a big chunk of it, and then the big push for the run-up. You can go, I think it's linked in every single article now between now and the event. You can go to the Ticketmaster site for the Blazers and enter the code Blazers Edge, all one word, and that'll link you to the ability to go ahead and purchase those tickets. So if you have the ability, if you have the capacity to send kids that would otherwise not be able to go to a game, please do. It's an absolutely awesome thing. And if you're looking for some positive silver lining stuff, that's the one to look at right there. For Tara, I'm Danny. We'll get you guys next week. If you have questions, comments, concerns, in the meantime, hit us up on Twitter at Blazers Edge, at TCB Biggs, at D Marang. And until then, we'll catch you later. Bye.